So busy. So I would like to call this planning board subcommittee meeting of June 26, 2025 to order. We have, as members of the subcommittee, we have Sean Henry and Beverly Bookin, and I'm Jane Remsen, the chair of the subcommittee and the vice chair of the planning board. We have our city planning director, Greg Catamatori. We have our staff planner. I know I can do this, Eric Hinderly. We have two guests behind us, one of which is Jason Grove, a city councilor at large. So, the first thing we are doing today is the continued review of the GZO cluster development. Not the right agenda.
That's not the right agenda.
Hold on.
Post it up. Check.
Okay.
Throw it up? Or you be a pen?
Print it up, the agenda.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'll do it for now.
Okay. Plan B is an update on potential revised inclusionary housing ordinance in lieu payment scales, which Greg provided us. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I will, I think there were a couple of questions at the last meeting regarding, I mentioned that I had scaled the percentages of the fee down as you went to fewer units in a multifamily. And so there was a request to have the actual percentages next to it. And then also I just kind of made a couple of examples. One was the current payment requirement for an inland payment for a project 6 to 9 units is around 550,000. It's calculated every year based on 3 years of data to define the median sale price, and then that's what's used as the basis. And so in the first scenario, it was just kind of breaking it down kind of in increments of 15%. And I updated this as I discussed at the last meeting in the economic feasibility analysis that RKG performed associated with the 3A effort. They looked at the financial feasibility of a $25,000 contribution. It wasn't really tied to a percentage, it's just a number. They had to just plug that into the pro forma, which turned out to be, according to the guidelines that were provided, we could have imposed a in lieu fee of $25,000. I put a hard bar, that blue line at the bottom. I don't know that that's something that we really want to get into because that would require additional approval from HLC. And we've also talked about some of the other, kind of issues with 3-family at this point, sprinkler systems and other requirements that are impeding that. So this would be an additional cost. So then I looked at, kind of breaking it out, almost ignoring, that, again, it's on a percentage basis that works out to be about 5% of that. But again, we'd have to go through it. So if you kind of take that out and just try to scale it across 9 to 4, this is a little bit more evenly distributed at about 20%. And then a lesser number for a lesser amount for a 4-family. So was for discussion purposes. I don't know how far we were going to get into that, but I just wanted to, kind of check something off that, we're trying to stay a little bit more organized. We have a lot of different moving parts. And that was something that also Steve had asked for, at the last meeting, to just kind of see how that breaks out. So you can either, there are other portions of the ordinance that we said that we're going to kind of delay the discussion until Suzanne Eaton be present at probably our August 7th meeting. But if you wanted to discuss this any further, that's what it looks like.
Yep, and I just want to make one note here that under scenario 2 in lieu contribution, second from the bottom, we need to add an extra 0 to make that 55,000.
Oh, look at that. How about that? And that is the difference between a spreadsheet and a hand-generated.
Right, PDF or whatever this is. That's so yeah, I do want to have the greater discussion when Suzanne is here to talk to us about how how we can improve the ordinance. But do Beverly and Sean, do you have anything more to say about it? Very helpful.
No, it's very, very helpful. It's interesting, the 550,000 is based on the 3-year for all units.
Yes.
Your
Median of all the sales for a 3-year period, and then it's that number on a per unit basis.
And so it does meld single and multifamily.
Yes,
And
all
so,
sales. Yep.
so it may be on the high side if you're thinking that, most of our units that will be affordable. But it doesn't matter. It's. the
Yeah, I think
methodology
it
is
does a
fine.
pretty good job
The
of
methodology is
kind of smoothing a lot of variability,
Sure.
because if there were, because we're having condominium sales, which are generally less than some of the single family home sales.
right.
It brings it down a little bit, but if there are more single family sales, then it's bringing it back up. So that's why, looking at it over a 3-year period, I think kind of smooths some things out. It is definitely trending. I mean, we started at 440, I think, maybe in the first 420 in the first year. That the ordinance was adopted, and now it's escalated quite a bit.
And it's based on medians.
Yes.
And that's what we discussed, way back in the day when we were creating the ordinance was, we spent a lot of time on how to make it fair. And right,
This is
so,
very reasonable.
yeah.
And probably given the other pressure on building these days, including mortgage rates, tariffs on steel and aluminum, and and maybe not enough construction workers as a function of several factors that we don't have to get into. It's going to be maybe harder to build housing coming up. And I think the tariffs may be on wood as well. So primary building materials. And as a result, maybe something a little softer, it's like scenario 2, as a more recognizes the uncertain financial picture in the country and in the state that we really cannot foresee.
Yeah, that's for sure. We don't need to take public comment on this, but since 2 people are here, then 2 other things to say. That's good.
I think it's good that you.
Mhm.
Issues.
Yeah, we haven't decided to do that, but that's like ongoing. Okay. Yeah. So let's table that and bring it back when we talk about the inclusionary ordinance when we get to it. Okay, so back to GZO section 5.9 cluster development and 5.15 OSRD. Space residential development. And also, can someone promote me to?
So I think maybe the last time we spoke about this, it's a little bit of a kind of summary of some of the discussions that we've already had. I think there was some clear indication that whatever it's called, the special permitted cluster or open space development, whatever you want to call it, because now the state is kind of indistinguished between those 2 types of permits. But that there was some advantage and desire to go the special permit route because of some of the flexibility it creates in not having potentially lot to develop. Wanted to do a single undivided condominium form of development. That's what's enabled by a cluster. We talked about the differences between the 2 current ordinances in terms of their requirement for open space and also the process to arrive at a density for a proposed project. One has a calculation that maybe, needs some attention. The other has a approved plan. And I think that was one issue that there was a little bit of difference of opinion as to whether or not we should pursue something that requires approved plan or if we can get to a calculation that people felt very comfortable with that being, it certainly would be less costly, for developer. If you're comfortable with the calculation, then there wouldn't be all of this justification for, coming in with a permit application and saying, I hope you guys agree, this is where we are. It literally is formulaic, comes
Mhm.
up with an answer. And then, as we've talked about, depending upon where in the community it's proposed, whether it's on site. The building.
Bye, Jason.
Pause for a second. Look at it very eagerly.
We see everyone missing.
Resuming,
Changing.
resuming, again, if if you were comfortable with the calculation of that, that would be the entry point into the proposal. It wouldn't be a comparison because by what you put into that discussion and formulation of that would be the justification for the density. We also talked about districts and where we allow it now, what the minimum threshold is, and whether that still remains appropriate. And then there was also some discussion about, is this, it can take on multiple forms. It doesn't have to be just about open space. It could also be about promoting housing, in which case are there instances where it's all about the denominator? And I think where we left things were, we'd like to try to give you some examples, either by almost doing a postmortem on a past project, could be something that's already built with the information that we'll get from, kind of like the steep slopes layer, that we can put all those things into place. We can look at original design plans and kind of almost do like a little exercise, of what it would come out based on those. And then you can start to toggle, if you feel like, the open space requirement is too much, or, just producing density by the underlying zoning requirement of minimum lot area. Is that too much? But again, it'll all come down to, is it Seward? Is it not Seward? What's the capacity of the site? So there's a few decisions there still, I think, directionally. And I don't know how much, some of them are independent, we're definitely saying that there should be a calculation, I think.
Yep.
And if that's the case, then, the relevance or having a requirement for a separate plan. We need to get the. Wait. Stop.
What did you say? We need a separate plan?
So whether or not you need a separate proof plan. So, I mean, I know that was something that David had raised, but that's,
I think if we can get confidence in
Right.
the calculation, we wouldn't need a proof plan, right?
No, and I think the whole point of having an ordinance like this is
To make it
that
easier.
we believe that this is a better
Approach.
option. So this on its face, it's a better option because you're preserving more open space and creating more housing. So you have force somebody to go through the exercise to show what the traditional subdivision would like comparison.
Right.
Seems miss the point. The ordinance. Right.
Well, and if it's a owned in common, which is the difference between owned in common and lots. The owned in common version takes out everything that shouldn't be built, steep slopes, wetlands.
Right.
Wildlife habitat. And the remaining density really, for starters, is a question of carrying capacity. And then looking at that compared to what, if the property were totally unencumbered, what the total. I mean, I'm not sure how we've been talking about the situation where you have owned lots in the area that's allowed with everything excluded. Then by definition, don't you have to reduce lot sizes and everything else? Because, I mean, or not. And if that's the case, you're not really getting much for a cluster. You're saying, got 25 acres, 10 of it's developable, it's an R10, you can do 40 units. Because that's what's an R10. It's not, can't do 25 times 4 or something. 100 versus 25 or something in between. You can only do 25 because that's all that a developable property have. That's based on the concept that the lots have to be 10,000 square feet and so on. And I have problem with that.
I feel like I've lost the thread of decisions we've made and.
I think I've done this twice now, and I don't think there's actually been decisions.
'Cause
So
I
I think,
thought we decided that the ownership in common was the way to go, but maybe not. No, we didn't.
I think, so right now, there is the option, so you're talking about whether you lot it or not?
Right.
Yeah, I'm
I think
to
that's,
Beverly's point.
yeah, I think that's been a choice. And I think one of the things with that is the current OSRD allows you to potentially go to 5,000 square space. It allows you to be very flexible on the frontage requirement. It really allows you to condense a lot more than, because like you, the point of, if I use a cluster in an R10 and I have to create 10,000 square foot space,
Yeah, it's
it
crazy.
doesn't work.
Right,
But I mean, that also calls into question, does it make sense to have a cluster
In R10. right.
We talked a little bit about that too, and I showed you some numbers of like how many eligible lots there were, and then after you took out the conservation properties, because they're generally the larger they're the larger lots in every district, because it's Greenbelt doesn't buy 2 acres, they usually buy, 30. That, 10 might not make sense. 20, it's a fairly large district, but I think that's some of what that's one decision point. We can start to focus on, where do you want this to be allowed? Then calculation versus proof plan. I think at least the subcommittee tends to agree that we don't necessarily have to go the route of proof plan, which takes out, when you compare those two ordinances, there's so much of the process focus on the yield plan. So that kind of gets whittled out. So which district, if it's 20 and above, what's the minimum size of lot? I feel like you can get
Some size parcel.
meaningful
Parcel, yes.
parcel, sorry, meaningful open space preservation. Because again, if you say 3 acres and you're gonna get 1.5 acres, that may not make a whole lot of sense.
Right.
You're not really getting a landscape sized piece of open space. Once you have distances between homes and lay it all out, you're gonna end up with a ribbon around the outside. It's gonna look like a conventional subdivision. So maybe that has to, and again, I think in the draft that we discussed a few meetings back, the minimum was at least 10 acres. And that might be something that, and again, we can test that against the R20 and look at what's available, if that makes sense. 5 acres, so it's a sizable piece of open space, depending upon what's maybe adjacent to and those types of things. We also talked about having a minimum threshold of a project that would produce at least 6 units. If there's some element to affordability in this, that it makes sense, you don't do a 3-lot division. And well, actually a 3-lot subdivision could produce 6 lots. If they were in
6
family.
units, 6 units.
6 units, sorry. So, but that was something that we included in there.
Yeah.
But then, that added piece that we could start to look at is maybe instead of 2 ways to go about it, instead of just reducing the underlying, reducing the denominator in how many units. You could also get into a bonus situation where maybe if it was very cut and dry, like if you were to conserve for every percentage point of open space in addition above and beyond the 50%, there's another unit that you could potentially add. So again, that it's very clear, it's not a justification. So there's different ways to do it. You could either do it through the base density and then see how it shakes out, see if somebody can actually lay out and produce the number of units that the calculation provides. Or use that base and then allow for bonus. So. But the bonus situation probably from a applicant's perspective is a little bit more risk. Because they're not sure if they're gonna get it.
Right, that's what my thinking was, that we want this ordinance that we want to use, that we essentially build a bonus in by creating the density within that frame, within the ordinance, that makes it work and be more likely to be built than the same parcel of property is being divided up. That's in our, for example. You have so many acres and somebody can get 10 lots out of it and an R40 and build what, 20 of them. 20. That if you craft an ordinance so that rather than, you're not limited to that R40 dimensional requirement, determine your number, you get to go down to say R10 in terms of on the buildable property. Then that's an automatic incentive for somebody to create that project versus chopping it in individual lots. And also, they, by default, would create smaller units, which would tend to be more affordable than 10 units in separate acre lots.
Well, the other advantage of not getting into lotting patterns is that the whole point of larger lots and say an R40 and R20 is to separate it from the housing beyond its boundaries. And by definition, when you cluster, you create, by virtue of clustering, you create greater distances between any one unit generally and the perimeter than you would if you. And so this argument that, you know, you have to maintain an R20 lot, and, you know, in the buildable portion really, or, you know, the whole issue of trying to find the right lot configuration really makes the cluster a whole lot harder to sort out. And so rather than applying these artificial numbers, you look at the reasons why a cluster is an improvement. And one of the cluster benefits is that it clusters it here and generally leaves wider separations between properties, adjacent properties. And that's really what adjacent neighbors are concerned about. They don't really care about the underlying lotting pattern or lot size so much as they care about having some distance.
Give them a shot.
I know, I'm trying to find, I thought I had a document that I was working through with the various issues. And I can't find
That was one with the,
Is it something that I?
it. No, I think
now
it was
would
something
be
I made
one
for
of the
myself.
comparisons?
No. Well, another one, I was, another way to do it, I'm saying this, I'm not advocating, but in the model OSRD, which I guess is from Massachusetts, there's kind of a sliding scale where it says if the lot area, you know, if the parcel is 80,000, you know, it just, there's different amounts of open space saved and different amounts of,
yeah, which makes some sense.
you know, lot area. But we had made some decisions on some other, we had gone through like some major buckets.
I thought we looked at this minimum
Is it
size.
the Chester?
Where it was, you had a document that had,
Yeah, I have.
Here,
the-
here,
in
and
the-
here
in
that
the drive,
compares.
We have the comparison
Yeah.
and the model. There's, and I started to develop a draft ordinance by section. That incorporated, so we did go through purposes,
Right.
so we have that,
What
that site,
document was I
that's
looking
in
at?
the drive. I can put it up right now.
Okay, thank you.
The cluster over and tell me if you'd like me to turn up or down
Oh, I'd like to make it warmer because it's blowing right on me.
Okay, I'll
Thank you.
pause it.
Or just turn down the fan.
So you get sweat on your brow, we'll turn it back on. So this is what we had started to work on, and we got through all of these. So we had gone through all the purposes. And I think that's something else that, again, could relate to either the underlying zoning. But yeah, I'm sorry, the denominator or bonus is if there's affordable housing in the proposed project at different affordability levels, maybe that's the driver for a reduction in the denominator. So if you're committing, I mean, again, if you're trying to make an ordinance that's both about open space preservation and housing affordability,
Which is what,
maybe it's, if you're gonna create whatever that number is, if it's a percentage of units, well, I guess we have to be careful because we already have a requirement.
Right.
So it would have to be something above and beyond that, if you produce 10% more units, then you get to use 80% of the underlying district in the calculation of your density. Or if you produce them at 60%, you get to use, I mean, again, this is all, it's all a matter of how there's a rationale, but we are picking numbers. So I think,
Yeah.
but I think there would be some sort of basis for, we're going to allow a little bit of increased density here if we're getting what we're looking for, which is one of the purposes of the ordinance.
Right.
Which is units available at these.
and can we throw in another complication, and that is, will these kinds of developments be open to these ADUs? Because, or not.
So I think that's one of the other things that, in a special permit, if it's not lotted, then the property would be entitled for money.
Interesting.
So it's, you're allowed,
Yeah.
it's allowed in a district that allows for single family, but then it's a lot. So
Yeah,
they're
okay.
entitled to one. So I think
This would
there's
be in
somewhere
lieu
in
of
here that you
ADUs.
could say, I mean, and that's something maybe we should write in is because this proposal, and I think one of the things that we talked about is you could potentially permit 1, 2, 3, and up to 4 unit buildings.
Yep,
Quick decision tree, because we had that.
yep.
We had that with the public hearing that we're gonna have in 2 weeks on the village development overlay district repeal. If that's the case, then, you might want to include. I mean, I don't know what it would really be accessory to, but, maybe articulating a little bit more that, builds 1, 2, 3 bedroom units, builds, but you'd want to see the whole plan. You are getting a special permit plan, and if you modify and add an ADU, it would probably have that. It would be like, show us everything at this point. It shouldn't really be accessory because you're really getting to the point where you're having a deed restricted open space, you're gonna have a development area. And if it's done the way it should be done, it should be kind of like, this is the take on it. This is how many units we're talking about. And what,
Right, it seems like there would be, if it was planned appropriately, there wouldn't be anything left over
right,
Exactly.
to add an ADU.
right.
So the
But it's an
point
important
is-
issue to bring it up because we've had a couple of developments where, we've had discussions about voluntarily, an applicant has said, we're not gonna do ADUs.
Right.
But if we hadn't had that discussion,
Yeah,
we
we
didn't have an
would've-
ordinance and we were like any other community that just is starting to deal with this, the state ordinance, every single one of those lots could have an ADU.
So what I'm thinking for this conversation, in this situation, we should have a density bonus of some kind in lieu of a. Because the density bonus would allow the additional units that ADUs would normally have provided over time, but played into at the beginning. and subject to the carrying capacity. And it's just better to know that, you know,
That's an interesting idea, instead of, I mean, you could still do something in addition if somebody's gonna provide more affordability. But maybe it's that you're really thinking about this in terms of 3 units per lot in the base zoning. I mean, that's, 30% more density because of that allowance for an additional unit. It's one
Well,
way to look at it.
I haven't looked at the Massachusetts one, and frankly, I don't want to at this point. But in most places, and certainly in Oregon where I come from, sorry to have to say that, ADUs are only for single family.
Right.
And so by definition, a triplex does not qualify, or duplex does not qualify. And the unusual situation in Gloucester is that in virtually every zone, duplexes are allowed by right, where they wouldn't be in any other city. I mean, you would never have a duplex by right in an R40 in Oregon. And so an ADU becomes, because it's allowed virtually by right, or it's allowed subject to very minimal standards. But if you meet the standards, you're approved. It's not a discretionary permit. It's just that you have to meet the standards. You essentially create a duplex by adding an ADU to any single family house. So it seems to me that it complicates things not to have the ADU, to not clarify the ADU is not an appropriate avenue for adding units. Instead, in a cluster development, we have this sort of density bonus provisions that in lieu of ADUs, I think would probably be the smartest way to go. Now, I don't know if that runs into Massachusetts.
I mean, again, if it was not allotted, they'd be able to do 180, which if you're in an unlotted development, it's likely gonna be condominium association with, they're not gonna allow it for the whole development, it just wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So I
Yeah.
think,
But I think if the legal question state saying you essentially have to allow it unless it's given up by the applicant. If you started out, maybe your base calculation again on the underlying zoning that would still allow for ADU development also, but it doesn't make financial or economic sense or any sense for somebody to go through this ordinance and try to use R40, for example. Whereas if you use this table of dimensional requirements per unit calculation, then you voluntarily forego the option of ever building an ADU in the future. So
Yeah,
you still present that option that would allow ADUs to satisfy the state law by using the underlying dimensional requirements. But if they use the dimensional requirements that would actually make it economically feasible and provide us the additional housing that we want also, then
that's the route you take.
the
Yeah.
applicant is foregoing.
Now, it's interesting because I live in the village of West Gloucester, 34 units, and there are a number of those units that have walkout ground level, basements essentially, lower levels. And they could easily be made into ADUs, easily. They're plumbed for a bathroom, and I would say the typical one is 1,200 square feet. You could easily build, about half of those units could put ADUs in.
Like attached ADUs?
Be built right into the unit because.
Wait, you're
they're-
saying that's actually their basement, not a living level, not a,
No, yeah, because it's very hilly. And so I have a full basement, but no access to, well, except for, what do you call those things with the doors?
Yeah,
Where they used to dump
right.
the
bulkheads in the
coal,
back.
the
Okay.
bulkhead. I really don't have, I could not really put in a livable ADU down there that has a separate.
but you're saying some people do have.
But
full
a
basements.
number of, because of the hills, there are a number of people who literally have
interesting.
from the back, not from the front,
Yeah,
but from the back, literally
yeah,
have
walkout basement.
a walkout basement, that comes under the deck
Yeah.
of the main floor.
yeah,
Easily made into ADUs. I would say out of 34, there are probably 15.
Oh.
15 ADUs
And
and
would, under the current ordinance, no, you wouldn't be allowed to
because
do
it's a
that.
single lot ownership.
Well, not only that, there's septic.
Yeah, there's.
So there
we're-
might be some
okay,
other
that's
other
what-
yeah.
limitations.
Right.
You'd have
both
to,
septic.
I mean,
That's right,
under,
you're right
under
about
the,
that.
if the. Yeah, it wouldn't be a by right situation because it's multiple buildings on a
Yeah.
lot. The lot is entitled to one.
Yeah.
They could special permit it potentially,
Yeah.
but they'd also have to come back to the planning board, they'd have to have septic capacity.
Yeah,
all
Sure,
those
yeah,
things.
and they would, and to grant it to one person and not grant it to the other 14.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, my point is there's capacity there and, most of us are 1 and 2 person households who don't need that. I mean, just storage place for us. And it's pretty empty at that. But I'm just saying that if it weren't on sewer, if it weren't on septic.
Yeah.
And it weren't a single lot, there's a lot of opportunity for picking up.
Mhm.
And ADUs by definition, because of the size limit, the upper cap, are one, they're smaller and less expensive to build, and two, at least the house has to be owner occupied, so by definition, they're rental, and so they need really niche in.
That's the
state
state law.
The state law doesn't require it anymore.
Yeah.
Doesn't require that
It
the
doesn't
one
require
unit has to be
owner
owner
occupancy, no.
occupancy.
Doesn't. So that's
That's too bad.
we'll
That's
get to that
another
one,
thing.
but that's why
Yeah.
there's so much complication between the two.
Well, and it's too bad because most people can live with ADUs if they know that one of the 2 units is owner occupied, so that there's
Right.
someone on site to manage it and,
Yeah.
And that usually is the key to getting ADUs adopted.
Mm.
I'd have to look in the Oregon situation, in the Oregon state law, whether it has to be one has to be owner.
Mm.
That's how I've drafted several of them in Oregon and they all had that provision, but state law's changing, everybody's scrambling to
I think
build more
Oregon-
units.
They've changed a lot. They
Yeah,
allow like
you're
4
allowed-
units in all single families.
Yeah, 2, 3, at least 2 and 3 and maybe 4 units in all single family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Throughout
imagine
the
they
state,
changed
so-
the AC, but when we did ADUs, one of the keys to selling it to neighborhoods was that the property owner lived on site in one of the 2 units, generally in the bigger unit, but could live in the ADU and rent out the house. But whatever.
On your discussion, going back to what's on the board, the dimensional standards. A lot of flexibility, was there discussion about having it in the ordinance, as Beverly was saying, so it's not lotted, it's.
We
So
discussed it, we didn't.
We could potentially, and one of the things that we talked about was, are we gonna write a new ordinance? Are we gonna try to fix one that we have? And we talked about maybe we'll just start from
Yeah,
scratch so that you
start
can
from
kind of.
scratch. Yeah.
But I think we can look at, the existing OSRD has some real minimums, like, you only have to have 50 feet of frontage and 5,000 square feet. And then there may even be a situation where it will state that the board can provide further relief from those requirements. Like if somebody said, we're thinking about, a cottage style development where, the units are gonna be staggered and this person just needs a walkway and there's gonna be a common parking area over here. And so they really only have 10 feet of frontage on the road. Is that acceptable? I mean, so I think there's some.
Right, so that was gonna be my next question, I mean, aside from dimensional standards in terms of separation of the buildings, minimum separation of buildings. Is there any reason if it's not lotted to actually get into lot frontage? If it's just a separation from unit to unit,
Yeah,
There is-
yeah, like you said, if we're gonna do, if you can do a development that you don't have to lot. That's the ultimate flexibility.
It is,
Each unit should have. Maybe every unit doesn't have to have access because you can conceive of, somebody putting 3 units and having a driveway around the back.
Right.
And they access from the back, so they technically don't have, access from the street. If somebody wanted to minimally lot, then they would draw those lines how they saw fit.
Now, also the other thing about not lotting is that technically the road is not a public road. It's just a very long driveway.
Mhm.
And so there really are no frontage requirements because it's not a public road. And that's certainly true at the Village of West Gloucester. We have one very long driveway Now, the issue of 150 feet or something, isn't there 150 foot standard of some kind in the code about?
So some of the cul-de-sacs off of the main road, well, so there's a minimum requirement of, or maximum length of a dead end of 500 feet. So that was something that had to be relieved.
In the
In the
village of
village
Leavenworth?
of West Gloucester.
Yeah.
The side roads, it's the first one to the right,
Dulwich.
Dulwich. That accesses 4 units.
Yeah.
So the standard for a court is it can't be more than 200 feet if it's, and it's supposed to only access 3 single-family homes. That was 4 units.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's the other thing that, I think has caused some issues is how much the cluster ordinance points you to the subdivision standard.
Mm.
So, and then also that calls into question the subdivision standards, how some of those need to be changed because those road standards are older than the 2-family allowance. So there's a lot of language of a small subdivision accessing 3 single-family homes. Well, that's not, somebody has to ask for a waiver if they want increased length or
That's
Reduced width.
regulations, right?
subdivision rules and regulations. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what should be, it seems to me, in a cluster, and I'm just using West Gloucester because that's one I can picture in my mind, is really a fire code issue of how to get the fire engines in and out. And so in the case of Dulwich, which is a fire truck has to back out.
Yep.
Because there's not a turn lane. The other areas, they have adequate turning radius so that a fire truck and an ambulance
Mhm.
can make them. And they really, they don't meet public street system. And there's only a cinder sidewalk on one side. It doesn't meet any of the public standards. But there's no problem with the fire.
And that was built under the cluster?
I'm sure it
ordinance?
was,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
That was the first one.
I have to go see it.
You really should, because, we can look at it, if we get the aerial, I can describe it to you, and you
Yeah.
can see it. But it also has the cluster has these requirements that every number of units has to be separated by 50 feet.
Right.
And every cluster within the cluster has to have a certain amount of open space. And I mean, these are kind of clunky provisions that I haven't seen in other plan unit developments.
Uh-huh.
But they have done it and it works pretty well. Is that it? Okay. So here's
So-
Dulwich. This is
Oh, I
long
got that.
driveway. There's this long driveway to Atlantic.
Mhm.
This is 4 units and you can see that it sort of dead ends and you're, then there's these 2 and I live right there. And then the first street is, what's it called? Ah, I'm
Plover Way?
blanking. No, Plover is what we all
Oh,
live
Heron
on.
Way.
Heron
Circle.
Court, Circle, and this is Curlew Court. But you can see that the fire engines and the ambulances can,
Right.
and then, but there was a requirement that there be these open space modules in here. Now, down here is, see
That's
this?
like a little gazebo in here?
That's a gazebo and a fire pit. Yeah, and all of this is, and then there's this area, and then there's
That down?
this area. And yeah, and they have these requirements that every number of units, you have to have some open space. And then this is Plover Way, and then when these meet and go way down, if you go back up, this is all open space because this is the main,
Is that south side?
community, not sanitary, so,
That's up and to the right.
yeah. One's the main and one's the
Reserve.
secondary. It's the
Yeah.
reserve, yeah, so
Oh,
all
see,
of this
that's
is
septic.
open.
Septic system is the.
Yeah, it's a community
Top
septic
right.
system,
This-
yeah,
top
it's a
right.
community
Does that
septic system.
Count for open space?
This is the septic?
Yeah, that's the septic.
Yeah. That doesn't count. Those are
Yes, that's a septic and this is the fallback.
open space.
And then see, all of this that's part of it is in, this is all in conservation zone.
Yeah.
So 25 acres, only 12 of which, this is 12. The rest is 13 acres and it's all in permanent conservation.
So the whole parcel is 25, you're saying?
So it's either 50, it's either just under 50 or over 50. I can't remember if it's, the housing makes up 12 and the conservation zone is 13 or it's flipped. But anyway, it's close to 50%. All of that is in permanent conservation zone.
And what do you like and what do you hate about the layout?
I think the layout is fine. I can tell you what I do dislike about it is that each duplex, the entry is over here.
Yeah, the other
So we
garage is in the
share
middle.
garages in front because you have to have your garage in front there, well, you
Yeah.
don't have to. But we can go weeks without seeing our neighbors that are next door. And we share a common wall, but they're very well built so that, I mean, you don't
They're
even.
double walled, so that.
Yeah, they're double for fire code,
Yeah.
right? They're what, are
And
they?
and they sometimes will have, it's almost like two foundations side by side with a space. So there's
Yeah.
No sound.
So here's two sets of, a double garage.
Yeah.
And here's here's one entrance and here's the other. And so, the only time you see your neighbors is one, when they're leaving and people wave and you
Yeah, they're
can't,
like standing in the.
Or you
Yeah.
go down here is the trash enclosure. Sometimes you're more likely to see your neighbors at the trash enclosure and then further down, we have a community mail house. We have a little library, that's where all the packages and you'll see your neighbors at the mail house.
Like down here? Or
No, it's
down?
further down, isn't it?
There it is.
Yeah, it's right there. And so I don't think that people like their privacy. And I think it's very conducive to privacy. It is not conducive to community life.
Hmm.
Now, there are townhouse developments where the front doors all open to the common area between them, the courtyard between them,
Mm.
which is also the driveway, but if it's designed, it can be court-like and there might be places to meet and you see your neighbors all the time because you come in and out of your doors,
Mhm.
and so I think the design is designed for maximum privacy and it's not great for community building.
Mm.
But
Interesting.
and we were
Well,
just talking
what-
about
So I
that today.
think one of the issues with this one, and probably there's some similarities to Upper Banjo,
Yes, there is.
is this would be an interesting test. We could print out and get
Yeah.
some crayons. Tell me how many clusters are in that?
3, 4.
Four.
I see 4.
Yeah,
I see 4.
one. Well, I see 3. It depends how
Like the
you.
top is a cluster,
That's a
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The bottom, Dowitch is a cluster.
Go-Witcher, yeah.
Dowitcher.
Uh-huh.
And then I kind of see 2. I
Like this
see-
has to be,
Well, these are cited so that this is my house and I look into the back of them. This is one of the houses that has a walkout basement, by the way. We do not because of the topography. But these people are here and I never see them because we don't share even a common driveway. I see my neighbors here occasionally in the back or when they back out. So this really is a cluster in terms of,
Yeah, maybe it's 1,
and
2,
then
3, 4, 5.
two,
So.
that's a really good
So,
quote.
so some of and this is what came up, I think also, the other one, that artificial 50-foot minimum. Again, probably
Constraints.
actually works on a larger site
Yeah.
where you actually have distinct clusters. I mean, 50 feet is not very big.
No.
So the other limitation in the current ordinance is you can't have more than 10 single family or 20 duplex units. So I believe it's just 3. So that separation up in that
1,
corner,
2,
everything Curlew Court and on the
Plover.
right side of Plover Way.
Yeah.
And then this is the second one and that's the third one.
And
It's the other thing is if you gave me this lot and said, develop an open space or cluster design, I would like to see all of the housing, like
So-
kind of a little north of where your hand is, right where your hand is now. So I'd like to see all of the housing from there down. and all of the open space from there up.
So this would be the open space up
Yeah.
here, and then that would be is it the grade that? is the
Yeah,
problem?
the area to the south of the two units is a big bowl.
And it's pretty narrow. It's pretty narrow.
I
You,
know,
it's
but-
the wider part. And here's the
It's
end.
like
the
the
whole-
upper slope,
whole-
right?
Eric, why don't you, either,
Okay.
either share it, like we're having all this discussion and,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and you're pointing away and nobody,
Oh,
I don't know that we have anybody watching,
Yeah.
but they
they
certainly
can't
can't
tell
see
what we're
what's going
doing,
on.
right?
yeah, we lost her.
Or,
I'm sorry.
But if you
I
throw
forgot
on
we're
the topography, everything to the, it's a pretty, it's a little bit of a, it's not steep, but there's, it grades up.
Mm-hmm,
And then this whole bottom area is just kind of a bowl.
yeah, I
Yeah.
see that.
And it's narrow.
And
You
there's a
really-
wetland area there. as
And there's a wetland. Yeah, you really
Yeah.
could not build closer.
the
It's
whole-
like a
it just-
huge stem
It's,
and then a balloon.
I
It's
get it,
Really. a
but
balloon.
but you can take off the topography because it's a little hard to see.
this one. There's
Um,
wetland down there?
But it gets to your
Yeah, it is a
point of
wetland. It is a wetland.
You're,
On the right-hand
you're
side.
getting a ribbon.
Um,
around the
yeah,
outside.
you're getting a ribbon around the outside
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
whole idea of cluster. Well, anyway. how
Yeah, but it
clusters are
depends.
required to be, is not creating interesting clusters. Or even
Right, alright.
like a design that's any different than a oxbow or lollipop in a subdivision.
Well, except that you can see the back property line there. That little strip there, which is behind our houses here
Over
on
here.
the west side. It matches up with a huge area that is also conservation, so.
So
And then
this-
go to
so
the north, it's also to the north. There
Mhm.
is quite a bit of land.
I
And
think
this,
those are all. aren't
Well,
those all
just
private though?
the abutting property is not in conservation.
Yeah,
it's not in conservation, but at
They
the
look
moment,
like
it's
open
still in
space.
open space,
Yeah.
yeah.
Paper road.
And this was a very controversial that they wanted,
Oh,
they wanted a second access from the back, emergency access to, what's the street back there?
that's spray, right?
Ray. And there was tremendous opposition, even if it were just for,
from the neighbors?
yeah, from fire.
No,
just for
actually,
fire.
they wanted to go out, Dowager.
Okay, so.
They wanted, if you go further down, they.
Oh,
wanted- they
there's a
wanted to connect
connection
Dowager
to-
Hunter,
Yeah. to Hunter
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and that made a lot of sense, didn't it?
when was this all?
This is much older, much older.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
You got,
standard
like, the lot
subdivision.
size. Yeah.
Well, I
Anyway.
can tell you by the housing, it's
Okay.
much
And,
older.
and the configuration. I
I'm
mean,
not a
it's stick
professional,
model.
but that just doesn't look, I mean, it sounds from Beverly that it came out very well, but it doesn't look like the best use of that lot.
Well, how would you subdivide it? What would be a better use?
Well, I guess the other thing you have to recognize is those are. We can do a quick measurement. I mean, they're very large foundations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
They're very
Mhm.
large foundations. I mean,
1,200 foot, they're 1,200 feet.
Times two.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they're like 2,500 square foot foundations.
right. They're big houses, they're big.
So
They're
they're-
36,
they're-
they're 3,600 square feet on 3 stories. And as I say, some people have developed their basements, some people have not. So it's a lot of house.
I mean, you look at the comparison of the size of the structures.
Yeah,
to the
right,
houses
right.
here.
Developments,
Yeah,
It may be,
Yeah.
and if you were to
Yeah.
take that same 36 units and they were 1,000 square foot footprints, it would be a
mm-hmm,
totally different development.
It's-
It'd probably be a lot more compact.
It's also 34 units,
Yeah.
but I mean, we're, the
Did
other
I say
thing,
36?
yeah, that's okay.
That's the street address.
Yeah. That's
36
okay.
Atlantic Street.
That's okay. But it really is, as a planner, I can tell you, it's about as economical as it could be in terms of rooms,
Hmm.
in terms of cluster.
Mhm.
And it's, this long driveway is not a particularly great feature,
Right.
but all of that is in conservation.
And so this space here, you guys, there isn't like communal fire pit time or anything?
There's a gazebo.
Yes, a gazebo and a fire pit, although
And
we've
there's a walking trail through it.
Yeah,
right?
there's a walking trail through it. Yeah, yeah. I walk the cats. My daughter has cats that will walk on the leash. We walk in there. Of course, it's Tickville. And then there's some up there. Yeah, and this doesn't show how green it is either because I don't know, in the winter, yeah, it's very scrubby looking. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. And the Y camp's across the way.
Mhm.
It's across the street.
Oh,
So,
I know where it
See, the
is.
Y
I
camp
get
is
it
right there, and the
now.
Y
Yeah.
camp, of course, falls down to the Anasquam is very steeply
Right.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this,
Jones.
I
Is that
wasn't
the-
here and
no,
when,
that's not the campsite, Sorry,
this is part of our, must be part of our site, yeah. Yeah, that's all part of the site.
this is not, that's a house.
No, that's a separate plan.
Yeah,
Well, I can't see where the lot line is, but all of it on either side of that driveway
Yeah.
is in conservation.
There's the line. Kind of
Yeah.
cuts.
And we manage the conservation zone. It has not been given to the city. It hasn't been given to
Right.
a nonprofit. Yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting, and I don't know how many now. The same developer started the one in Magnolia, called the Village at Magnolia on
Mhm.
Kennedy Street.
So,
Yeah, but those are lotted up here.
those are.
so he actually finished your development. Then, he finished that development. It was started by a different company.
What, the owner started this and went belly up, and then much of it was developed by a second
Yes.
developer.
Okay.
But Magnolia, I think, had some relationship, I think, to the second owner, Larry Smith. Maybe? Is that
Yep.
everything?
Larry Smith.
And Magnolia is the same concept, which are duplexes, but they're on separate lots.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
where Greg Fetterspiel and his wife lived for a
Yep.
while.
And this one was a conventional subdivision.
Yeah.
It was a conventional
that it
subdivision
now?
and
Is
then
that
they created a
Magnolia?
condominium association after the fact.
Got it, right.
Yeah,
Well, it's an improvement over a conventional subdivision for sure.
Which one is? First one?
Beverly's.
Right, because
Mhm.
this is a lot of.
Stop scrolling.
Sorry. just to-
Getting- I'm
to show
getting
the
like-
whole-
Motion sick.
well, and I.
Move the hand
Let
and
me,
point.
I can tell you one thing as an owner. The condos that I've lived in have all been condos. I mean, they've all been owned in common. You have a much better management of your site than you would of individual property.
Mhm.
Because the landscape is unified, we have a contract for trash. We have a mutually, we have to
Yeah.
manage our septic system. It is a much sounder way to manage the property than it is to
Yeah.
have individual.
It just doesn't produce open space.
Well, remember, the current standard is 30%.
Yeah.
So that's,
And this is close to 50.
yeah, I mean, I think both, most of the instances it's more, but you gain a lot of acreage just by having space around the perimeter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep, and clustering them together, and this mandatory spaces in the middle, breaking up the quote clusters. Yeah. I mean, you should really come and see it. That big open space in the middle just doesn't, that area does not do justice to how lovely it is.
Okay.
It's heavily treed and it's got these little walking paths in it, and yeah, it's really quite lovely.
In the middle, you're talking about like.
No,
this
the
area.
one up there.
The one in the
right there.
middle of the
It's
cul-de-sac,
quite
the
large,
first
yeah,
cul-de-sac.
Yeah, right.
it's very lovely, yeah. Except it's ticky, what can I say?
Ever thinking.
But yeah, no, it's
Huh.
fine. Anyway, we don't talk, but that is a good example, right? Because it was the first one
Yeah.
done under the existing cluster.
Yeah. And so the bowl, you had to take out those slopes, I mean, do you
Yeah,
remember?
I mean, we could, this is one we could potentially work with. We have the design plans, the
Yeah.
existing condition plans beforehand.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean,
once,
maybe if we pretended it had that whole big frontage piece, because it does end up with that long driveway that.
Right, it
because
doesn't
it's
have
kind
much
of short
front.
choppy, yeah,
Yeah, it's much, yeah. The other thing,
sorry.
I believe, and I wasn't here, it took a huge amount of sculpting of a lot of site prep.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that it's sort of undulating as it is, and some units are completely, have total basements and some have walkout basements, and even as much piracy is, my understanding is that there was an enormous amount of earth moving
Mhm.
to make this work. And to create the slopes for stormwater
Yeah,
runoff.
the south of Dowager is just, it's just a fill prism. You know, it really dropped off and they had to kind of retain and build that up,
Oh, yeah, they had
Yeah.
tremendous,
There's a
yeah,
lot of
rock
earthwork.
walls. Yeah, a lot of rock walls.
which is maybe why the first developer
Went
finished the
down.
project.
This is the problem too about that kind of development, is that you have to put all your infrastructure in first, right? So you have front end costs,
Yeah, I mean,
or is it not?
Dowager went in last,
Yeah, it did. It was
but,
the last you built.
but
The
yeah,
last
if,
four
you know,
years.
you gotta get all the way to the top of the site to start building out the side.
The first unit, though, the first run of units was here.
Mhm.
And it's from this point forward around here that these got built by the second.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, so, but this is number one, and it has a huge retaining wall.
yep.
So it's got a lot of.
All
So
right,
I'm not
thank
sure
you.
how else.
That
we
was,
do it.
well, I don't know, that was just,
Yeah,
interesting.
you know, come and visit and we can walk it.
Yeah,
We can walk it.
So that would be interesting to, potentially use that once we have these other
yeah,
data sources to kind of see what that would shake out to look like.
yeah.
By the way, is this Bray? Is this the Bray right away?
Yeah.
Yes,
But
That's.
at a point from here is private, I believe.
it's just not developed.
Yeah, we walked it
Yeah.
because we had,
Yep.
we had
We
a
did.
case there.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, enough said, but come and walk it and then you get a sense of,
yeah.
get a sense of it. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention is, I don't know, there's 25 units, what is it, R 20?
40. Oh, maybe it is our. I don't
Is it
know.
R 20?
I think it was R40. The front was probably R20, yeah, the back is R40.
Okay, well, if that's the case, it would be, in other circumstances, conservation zone notwithstanding, it would be eligible at an R40 at 25 acres for 25 units, but we've got 34.
Because that split zone, they took the acreage
Gotcha.
in the calculation and kind of,
Gotcha.
they basically did do two calculations and then added them
Add them
together.
together, that's how they
Yeah.
got to 34.
Yeah.
Because I believed it was more than would have been allowed by minimum.
Mhm.
And I didn't know if that was because there's density.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, that's a good example of our zone in.
Mhm.
Sean, can you just summarize again what your idea is in terms of calculation?
Produce incentive if somebody actually used the plan.
Right,
I think you have to start with control requirements significantly less than the underlying, it's in those larger districts. So I think the examples I gave, like, you go R30, R40, and you start with your 50% open space that you're
Right.
saving, minimum 50% open space that you're saving. And then you pick out whatever other areas that can't be developed. The septic system slopes,
slopes,
everything that we
right.
talked about. And you're left with whatever that one could be.
mm-hmm,
Or I thought, just again, roughly throwing what would be out there, and for districts, the zones R30 and R40, you would use dimensional requirements, not for a lot development, for calculation of number of units of R10. And then,
So that's interesting, because so that's almost, instead of even considering the underlying zoning in the calculation and the denominator, go through and remove
which you have to remove.
all the things that you have to remove, see what that remainder is, and then apply
your dimensional,
Your
dimensional standard to
reduce
that.
dimensional standards. So that again, you're creating incentive both to preserve that open space that you're preserving, but also you're getting density that makes the project financially feasible and producing more units than would otherwise be produced.
I
And
like it.
again, also
It's
with
easy.
the denser development in that smaller area, whatever it's, again, 50% or less. I think it would incentivize or basically lead to smaller unit developments So
And
you would
more,
have,
and
you
more.
would have facto more affordable
Right.
units, even the lower A,
Yeah.
just affordable. And you wouldn't necessarily wind up with like your observation of Beverly's Place with however big those 2,400 foot foundations.
Yeah.
You would have much smaller,
Oh, they're not 24.
And
They're
if it's
That's-
1,200 each,
That's,
1,200, they're 24 per duplex.
that's how you would arrive at a
But
number
that's a
of
big
units.
ground floor.
But are you suggesting those would be lots?
no,
No,
Just the number of units?
yes. Yeah, and that's why I was saying that I think, I like the notion, Beverly's notion of not encouraging it not to be allotted. Because then it would give a lot more
Flexibility,
flexibility
Yeah.
for placement of the homes,
right?
And you could-
Conservation too.
yeah,
right,
for-
and-
privacy, you could do sort of like pizza lot development, reverse pizza slices, so that one home is up front with the big slice of the pie, and the next home is back here. so
They can also be, they could be offset, they don't have to be together.
Right.
Now, I think that's a really good idea, and just so you know, that R10 is essentially 4.4 units to the acre. That's the standard, if you were to divide 10,000 into 43,560. The question of, do you need, because much of those bigger lots now in Gloucester are not sewered, so they're going to be septic. Is the septic excluded? Or is it part of the development area, but you can't build on it so that you can calculate the density for that half acre or 3/4 of an acre that's in the two fields, but that they can be then transferred to the portion of the site that remains for housing.
They,
Because
what can be transferred?
the units that you would have built on the septic system,
Oh.
because the septic system
Oh,
is not conservation zone,
Right,
but it cannot be built on.
No.
And you wouldn't need the septic system if you weren't building the houses. And so it seems to me it's a double penalty to have to put in this very large septic
that's a good
system
point, yeah.
and then deduct it and then calculate it now. And calculate the 4.4
But-
units only for what's left. Just let me finish. But the septic system capacity also could put a cap on what you can build, and that is part of the engineering, but you shouldn't be penalized for the septic.
the septic though, in your subdivision or
Mhm.
whatever cluster, why does it look like it's just a dirt lot? What's on there?
It doesn't, it's native grasses.
Yeah, so can't you walk around on it?
No, well, people sometimes walk their dogs there, generally you don't. And
Why?
well, one of the things is you can't compress the land, you can't compress the soil because we
I
spent a
mean-
huge amount of money to rebuild one of those
But-
lots because it wasn't proper.
Everyone with septic in their backyards is using it as a backyard.
Well, we don't. One is grass and I think one is native grasses. You can come and see it.
could,
'Cause
but
I'm
it may
just-
just be that in,
The
you know,
soils
you know what
are-
you do in your backyard, and when it's an association, they're just like, you know what?
Yeah,
Let's not have
Yeah.
this.
I
And
suppose.
you can't
You know,
drive on.
before you know it, somebody says, because I've seen some that are mowed and maintained,
Yeah,
but you can conceive that somebody's like, oh, well, why don't we play volleyball?
Yeah.
They get out, they get the stakes and all of a
Oh.
sudden you have a problem.
yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
So
you got
they
this
may just
infrastructure
kind of
right
put it
in.
off limits, it's wildflower, it's a wildflower meadow and.
It's a wildflower
It's-
meadow
so-
and
When I
and
lived in
it's
a
seeded
house-
twice a year and they don't mow
Yeah.
it and it's only mowed
When I
twice.
lived in a house with a septic tank, it was under the driveway, right?
Yeah, you can do loading over a septic system too. You can have it so that it's a portion of it is drivable too.
Yeah,
Yeah, but in our case, we don't.
Yeah.
And one other advantage of not lotting is that all state laws, but Massachusetts state condominium law is very well articulated about how a residential area owned in common is governed. I mean, right? I mean,
Mhm.
there's no, when you do it this way as opposed to Magnolia, everybody knows what the rules are. You have to have a neighborhood association and it has to have, all of these things that are structured by the state. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
To your point, I think including the septic, even though it's not buildable, but including it in the calculation, because you can't consider it
Right.
conservation land either.
And then
Or
shift it,
Makes sense,
although it functions as open space.
right?
So it functions for stormwater, oxide,
Pollinator garden.
pollinator garden, birds, the whole business. But it really truly is not something.
Well, the other thing we could do is we could calculate what percentage of these properties is septic field.
Sure.
And then maybe that's just your consideration of, maybe it's not 50%, maybe it's 45%. So you have some sort of allowance
Mm-hmm.
for, that if it, particularly in the area that's gonna be served by septic for a cluster, there's a 5% allowance for the septic field.
And maybe as part of that, the requirements are that it be planted in natives and native plantings and so on, right? I mean, so that in fact
But
it
eventually
functions
it
as open.
probably does have a maintenance plan of a certain period of time. It needs to be mowed because you don't want trees taking root and
Right,
damaging
right.
the absorption field.
But, and I just threw out R10 because it seemed like an easy calculation. But
Well, it
I
is an
think
easy
depending on where.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, I mean, if you're including R20 in the mix too.
Yeah,
would
you
go
could
down to
say it's
R5.
R5.
And maybe even consider R5 for in the R30 district, depending on what size lots
Right.
are available.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a matter of how constrained are the properties?
Right.
Depending upon the variables that you're gonna exclude. What does that look like? And then from there, I mean, if it's already 50% of, the property is constrained by in the calculation.
Right.
So you had a 20-acre site that's now a 10-acre site of developable area. And then you're dividing by 10, you're still, if it was an R40 district, you're still way ahead.
Right.
You're having 4 times the density, so maybe
Right.
it's,
And that's what, my point was to actually incentivize having the ordinance actually used. And then also, because it's gonna be a special permit, it removes that variable of the developer making a case for that increased density to the
Right.
planning board making an arbitrary decision, does it fit?
Mm-hmm.
You just start with these are your density levels, whether it's R5 density or R10 density. And then that's ultimately the final density is actually further constrained. To your point about septic capacity. So that's your starting number. You use one of those smaller district numbers to calculate the density you can build and the buildable portion of the property. And then before the permit's granted and the plan is made, the engineering work is done to figure out what the carrying capacity of that property is.
Yeah.
For the actual number that can be built there.
And it's not just septic, it's topography.
Right.
Yeah, and ledge and that kind of thing.
But it's, in my mind, it's just more a concrete calculation that would be less appealable. Less arguable.
well, I mean, you're literally making the rules.
Yeah.
So, if it's concrete and it's not a prove to me, show me, this is how you do it.
Right.
I mean, that's
The one
predictable.
Yeah.
potential problem with that is if you pin it to R10 or R5 and then you change down the road, you change R10 or R5.
Oh, no,
Oh, you
I
could
just
just
meant use the
write it
numbers.
as calculation.
not
Yeah.
pin it to the other district.
Oh, okay,
But
It's
just,
just, you're
I
gonna
see.
use this in your denominator.
Use
Got
those
it, got it, got
dimensional
it.
requirements.
By definition, an R10 with a minimum of 10,000 square foot lot always is 4.4 dwelling units.
Got it.
And in a R5,
Got
it's
it.
always 8.8 units because you divide it
Yeah.
5,000 into 43,560. The other reason I love this approach, because we really tangled about this 3 or 4 meetings ago, is my concept was the way it works other places, or it could work, is that you put 50% of it into wetlands or conservation, but you get the full development capacity, you just move it on to the 50%, transfer development rights. And your point was, you didn't like that.
Yeah, I don't. I still don't.
You wanted the conservation zone,
Right.
not to be able to, so, and I don't happen to agree, but the more you talked about it, the more I thought, well, I could see some argument here. His approach is you do deduct it.
Yep.
You
I
only,
heard that.
but you do decide on some number of units
Fixed.
per acre for
Mhm.
that which is left.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you put it to the utility test. Not utility, but the,
Septic.
Septic.
well, it's just not septic.
Sanitary test or something.
Yeah, the,
Carrying capacity.
carrying capacity.
Right.
Because it could also be wells. By the way, you might not have enough water table. That's, so it's not just septic, it's water, septic, it's topography. Those are probably the three basic.
Drainage.
Drainage, yeah. Yeah. So I think that we made some progress here, unless other people.
No,
No.
this is actually beyond expectation. Jane and I were talking yesterday and I'm like, still
many
don't have the
feet?
ability to really kind of do, we kind of did a little bit of a digest of
Mhm.
something already built. But now it's a matter of, applying some numbers to that and seeing what it would look like.
Right, and my thought was that if you picked parcels in each of those zones that we're considering.
Yeah.
Just at random, pick something that sort of represents the average of.
Yeah, we talked, maybe we'll just use Greenbelt properties.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. Good
Right.
idea.
Yeah.
That's a
But then-
safe one.
Yeah.
But then you could start modeling.
Yeah,
Preserving the 50%,
right.
seeing what the topography would allow. And based on, again, either those are 5-dimensional parameters or 10-dimensional,
Right.
or whatever we wind up with somewhere. in
I can
between.
see like this is, it'd be really nice to have a nice. Maybe AI can help, a nice graphical tool where you could just basically, take the abacus and slide it back and forth and see what it comes out with, but it's, it's a scenario spreadsheet. Of like, okay, if we applied these different standards, this is what you get for a base density.
Right.
And then variants of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what I was thinking, that
Yeah.
basically, once we establish the general parameters, then you just start plugging in the calculations for, we start at 4,000 square foot.
Yeah,
For
that's a little
younger
bit like what this model ordinance, but not as specifically as you're talking about, but it's got this sliding table.
By the way, apply it to 25-acre West Gloucester, village at West Gloucester. 50% is set aside. Let's say it's 12 acres. That leaves 13 acres times 4 is, well, 12 times 4.4 is about 40. And we've built 34. It's not that off. If it was 13 acres left available for development, then it would be 13 times 4 is 50. What's 13 times 4?
3 times 4.
52. And then you do get the 0.4 and that adds, yeah, so 52, so maybe you get to about 54, 55. And we only built 34, so,
But I think those
but it does
50 plus would
show,
be smaller than the 34 you built.
pardon me?
The 50 plus would be smaller than,
Because you have to
So
build it
I
on.
just,
12
I measured
acres.
those full foundation, there's 6,000 square feet.
Oh, wow.
You
Oh,
think they're-
yeah.
That's, they
Well,
measure out to be.
the other thing that would encourage smaller units is to make it so that the open space has to be more contiguous. And not necessarily completely contiguous, but not the ribbon around the,
Right, because when you break it up, like,
yeah,
there's,
'Cause
I
you
think that middle
practically-
part.
it's
was
practically every.
calculated into
Well,
the open
I mean,
space,
there is,
right?
and,
Right,
and
right.
if we're not gonna totally reinvent the wheel, there's a whole,
Right.
site planning piece that talks about primary conservation areas, secondary conservation areas. So like, once you figure out what this 50% number is that you have to conserve, these are the targeted types of,
Yeah,
land areas on the property that we
Yeah.
would like to conserve.
yeah,
So, I mean, a lot of the examples are just, it must be the area in the back. That's the primary conservation area.
It may
But
not be the
it
best.
could be that there's an adjacent open space
Yeah.
Yeah, in the
On
front.
either side.
Right.
or, whatever it is. So but again, I think it's because of that perimeter.
yeah,
And I think
It's-
maybe that's why some of these are pushing a little bit further and having a 60% requirement or whatever it is, because just taking that, 200 feet around the perimeter of a 20-acre site, I mean, that's that's a lot of land area that just,
But people want that buffer too, right? Like.
and it's a matter of, you know,
adjacent
if you
property
see
owners.
something, we don't have the 200-acre parcels.
No,
That you really
True.
can have this, there's a really, you know, this vernal pool area over here, and then
Yeah.
there's this standable, you know, older, you
no.
know.
Although I have to say, and I can, and let's just use this as an
I
example.
wasn't gonna say old growth, because we don't have old growth.
Yeah, no, I know.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
But, two things. First of all, the benefit of clustering is being able to put things
Yes,
closer together so
right.
that you save on infrastructure.
Right.
So,
Right.
secondly, you have to look at the quality of the conservation land, where it is.
Mhm.
In making that judgment rather than artificially saying, I don't, you know, want it to be in the perimeter. But one of the advantages of the perimeter where we are on our side is we have a steep slope up. Now, they must have done some earth movement, but there's a steep slope. It's a pretty primal forest.
Mm.
We have deer, we have turkeys,
Mm.
we have foxes, we have wolves. And not wolves, I think we have
Coy
seen it.
wolves.
Huh?
The coy wolves.
Yeah, the
coyote
coyote,
wolf mix.
yeah,
Right.
the coyotes. So we, and so with that long corridor that is just, I think an accident of how it was platted and that long entryway,
Mm.
that really is a wildlife corridor.
Mm.
Because it goes up that side and goes beyond down to Bray, a lot of that Bray area, whether it's in conservation or not
Mhm.
developed. And so you could
Yeah,
argue that it
that's a
may
point.
only be
Mhm.
40 feet wide, but it is not only a valuable conservation zone,
Mhm.
but it is a wildlife corridor.
The corridors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's less the case on the other side that doesn't have that topography.
That's, yeah.
Okay, it's just about 5 o'clock. Are you okay with the air conditioning? Everyone okay? Cause I'm okay. Okay. Where does this leave us? Are you ready to, or do we have any more big decisions to make about this?
No, I think this is pretty good.
Okay, so could you make a draft of something for
Mhm.
us to look at? And it doesn't have to have, like, you know, we can fool around with 50%, 40%, 30%.
Yep.
6%, whatever we need to in the various things. And then maybe we can do a exercise next time about, well, or pick some lots and we'll,
Yeah, I think, so our GIS consultant, they're back on, so they were kind of in between fiscal years, they're
Mhm.
back on. I got an email from him actually yesterday that he said we should have something pretty quickly. I am out of the office on Monday and Tuesday next week, so it's
Okay.
not something I will be working on, but if it comes in, it's something that Eric can work on.
okay,
So that might take a little bit more time
to prepare.
to prepare.
Okay,
So maybe, if we're going to meet next week, what we
Mhm.
didn't get to on this agenda, if you want to start talking about that next week, we could do that.
well, I have another half hour if you guys do, you?
Oh, I thought you were saying
No.
approaching 5 o'clock. I thought
No.
you were wrapping up, in which
But-
case I will turn the air conditioner back on.
No, oh, I can, it's whatever you guys wanna do.
I'm totally flexible.
Okay. All right,
Step to the restroom.
yeah, okay.
Why
Let's
don't we take a,
A break.
touch,
Yeah.
take a break.
I want to ask about this.
Yeah, cause it's too
Yeah.
interesting not to talk.
It is very interesting. I cannot believe, I know we're offline. I
No,
cannot.
We're not,
we're
we're not.
we'll take a 5 minute.
5-minute recess, we'll be back.
What's that?
I'll wait. I think this has been really
Hold on 1 second.
you're back on.
Okay,
Are gonna go.
yes, we're
Okay.
gonna what?
We're gonna go to the next part of the agenda.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So are we recording? Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
We're back, we are back
I
after
was-
the recess.
Do we have
Answering my
anybody, Jen?
emails. What?
There's, I think there's, there was one.
And we lost her. She had a phone call.
Right, so we're gonna move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the review of the data that has been provided to us by RKG on the existing nonconformities in terms of lot size, setbacks, frontage, height, et cetera, existing in Gloucester on the ground. Which is so interesting.
I was shocked. I was shocked.
Right? And you know, one of the most interesting things was we have barely any height nonconformity. Barely.
Yeah.
Well,
That was
that's because the height has always been 30.
Well, for since
Since zoning.
1960.
Yeah. since,
Uh, So everybody can see that. So this was something that we were able to scope and get done at the end of the fiscal year with kind of some remaining consulting services funding
from
from RKG. They're, you know, they were kind of a natural to work on this because they
Sure,
already
because they had
had
done
our data
this.
set. And also, this was something that was kind of not scoped, but brought up when we in particular talked about the R5 district, so it made a lot of sense. Just. Okay, 30% better. Okay. So we gave them our data set of our buildings. They used a combination of the assessor's data as well as some of the data layers from the state, which we submit to the state. And if you remember Allison Christensen, it was quite a challenge. We kind of like walked through all the things that we were trying to do and developed a methodology to do it. So it does kind of, it slices through the analysis of combining the buildings with the zoning layer, and then does a lot of measurement of the footprint of the building as it relates to lot coverage, the frontage of the lot, its compliance with front, rear, and side yard setbacks, lot coverage, and then also building height. So I will say that there are a lot of caveats to the data. I think it certainly teases apart kind of very broad strokes if you were to compare district to district. And there are things that we can do. We have this data set, we can do further to refine it. One of the first observations Jane had mentioned in the R40 district, Dogtown is in there. And there's areas in the community, Dogtown, as well as near Magnolia Ave and interior behind to the west of Magnolia Ave, where there are old woodlots that are 40 feet wide, and a couple 100 feet long, and they're always going to come up as non-compliant. And they may, from a counting perspective, be a significant amount of the denominator and also numerator, depending upon what the attribute that was looked at. So first off, which I think they did something that's kind of nice and valuable, is they
So valuable.
just walked through
Oh.
and said, these are the residential zoning districts that we're
Yes.
going to
I love
analyze."
these maps. Yeah.
They kind of came pretty close to using the color palette that we use to define the districts. That was the R5. This is where the R10 is. This is where the R20 is. 30 really focused in West
Yeah.
Gloucester, to the south.
But all those, go back, all those lots with slices, those
Yes.
are all conservation land.
Yep.
So,
And then R40. And then our 2-acre, our 80 district.
Yeah, I thought it was fabulous.
So not only did they presented the data tabular as well as one big graphic with an inset for the R5. Can't forget our RC40. So we also can now look at things just on the individual, create graphics based
Mhm.
on the individual district, because it's kind of, that's a lot of information on the right-hand graphic that has all the districts, but it also, it's a little bit of a Rorschach where you can very quickly tell how much non-conforming there is. This was their overall, looking at all of the metrics that come after this, showing about a 90% non-compliance in one way or another. This is not surprising. We know in 99, we changed the requirements in just about every district. So, they fell short on one of those dimensions. This does not take into account, there is a section in the zoning ordinance for certain streets in certain zoning districts where the prior setback requirements are what are in practice. That's a really tough one. It's not very, talk about how hard it got to get to this point
Mhm.
of using these different data sources. That would be a whole nother effort to try to grab those streets, apply another model to it. Because again, each one of these runs is in code saying, here's the structure. I've already told you that the frontage is here. How does it comport with, its distance from sides, its distance from rears, and those are different for every district.
Before you move on from this slide,
Yes.
can you just use your cursor to show where Dogtown is and also the
Sure. So we look at this over here. See my little hand.
Yeah.
These are portions of the Dogtown lots as well as some of these larger ones, but these are kind of those old wood lots that, they're not gonna comply with anything. They're not gonna have frontage. They're
Right.
gonna be too narrow. They don't come into any of the analysis really of, there are no structures.
Are there
So
any
it's-
streets?
No,
No. So there's no structures either. So they're kind of, in some ways, they're counted, in some ways, they're not. But
But it just
overall,
in this-
in that main,
like-
main table,
so,
it's triggering something that they're not conforming in.
right.
Which is, in most cases, probably a lot area.
Also those two big lots on either side of the
Yes.
road, those are conservation as well. So,
They are, they're actually the Babson lot. which
Watershed, right.
Has the Babson reservoir as
Yeah.
well as watershed.
right.
Yep.
So in other words, that's a big chunk of orange that should be a different color.
But interestingly, it only counts as one.
True.
One
So
lot.
it's not,
That's true.
it's really the wood lots
Yeah.
that can skew
Right.
percentage in a district.
And can you show the ones down there, the ones that
Yes,
are in
so
Mount
then, and then
Ann?
down
Oh,
in,
look at that.
down in here,
That's all conservation as well, on both sides of 128.
they're watershed, not permanently protected, but as
Okay.
long as we operate
Yeah.
a public water supply, there's not gonna be any activity. We own good portions of those areas as well.
And the other side of 128 a little bit,
Yeah,
right there to the
Some of these.
the
here.
west, yeah,
Yeah.
or north.
Yep.
Southwest.
So that's the overall by district. I think it gets, that's a kind of a big percentage.
Oh, it's
And
just-
then we kind of go through each of the different attributes of a parcel. So in each one, there's one table that will define what the dimensional requirement is. And then it measures that against, for each of the lots in the district. So frontage, again, you can see there's, we went from some areas requiring 50 to requiring 65, from 65 to 80, 80 to 100. Kind of makes sense that you see a little bit less in the larger districts because they may have gone from 40 to 80 and the requirement
What's
of
the
frontage
big
is
deal?
the same.
Yeah, but the one that's the biggest, for example, is R30, but I think that's being skewed by the conservation.
That could be. So,
Look at
so for
R5.
another iteration, again, we did this for a number of reasons because you could make a lot of different decisions based on this.
Yeah.
Or, it depends what your goal is, what your motivation is. So this is just kind of the raw data, and then we can start to
Clean it up.
tailor.
Yeah.
If you see a trend in a particular district and you say, we want to go in and look at that, then we would go in and remove city-owned property, we would remove conservation areas. so that you can, then again, see a better
Because
depiction of what's
I
going
could
on.
see in a perfect world where the data was completely fixed, that you would say if there was more than 50%, whatever the number is, but like 50% is a pretty good one.
Yeah.
If there was more than 50% nonconformity in this particular attribute, then we're doing the wrong thing
Yeah,
and that it needs to be fixed.
I mean, I guess so then you have to start looking at, you have that one that includes every single attribute, which is.
No, I know.
Which is, and the other thing I will say is.
That's just an oh wow.
Some of the other
masterpiece.
things that we can't really discern is if there is some play in the lots, the lot lines.
Yeah,
There's play in the building location and,
Yeah.
and its calculated area. And so there could be an instance where, and that's something we can also look at because those measurements are also in the back end of data. And there might be some tolerance where you say, it's got to be 3 feet over the line to really be non-conforming, because if it's on the line, it might be conforming, but it might not. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
play in the lines,
but like,
but those broad strokes should be
Yeah.
true.
so in your next slide, for example, front setback in R5. That's horrifying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Like, that's crazy. And no wonder the ZBA has to deal with that all the time.
Yeah.
That just is wrong.
and what is the setback?
So it's a 15-foot front yard setback
And nobody has it.
Yeah.
End of story.
well, and we did adjust that in one way in the 3A district in terms of.
Yeah,
And there may be, I mean, I've seen in other communities, in smaller lot districts, or even, what's a 50 by 50?
yeah. I mean, and there's no,
5 times 50.
So it's like a,
75 highway.
yeah, 7,500 square foot, where, what is the real reason for the setback? One is you need some space between buildings for fire protection. But more typically,
And light.
an access to the rear so they might do, instead of saying you have to be 10 and 10. You have to choose one that has 10 and one can be 5. So that there's, and that would be an interesting to look at, is what was the development pattern? Because for the most part, an R5 has one driveway on one side and they're closer on the other side, but yet we have an equal
Yeah.
setback.
So what's interesting in this is that those percentages of non-conforming front setbacks are huge in that column. And yet when you look at the map, though on the right, it's mostly green. So I know we're only counting by one lot. Well, I guess so. But do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
and I
look
think
downtown.
this will be helpful to, again, not using a static PDF, but I can also, there's an online GIS program that we can literally look and just turn on one district
Yeah,
in this same.
Yeah,
Dichotomous,
see,
it
yeah.
applies, it doesn't apply,
right.
kind of move around in that district. Because
Right.
right now it's hard, it's all of the districts all at
Right,
once.
right.
Uh,
And a lot of it again is Dogtown.
And remember, the other piece of this is, if it doesn't have a structure, it falls out.
It falls out of what?
It falls out, so,
Of
Oh,
no.
if you
Oh,
remember.
right.
Right.
But
'cause
still, then why is the percentage so high? Because look.
It's
look
still
at-
high, so that's what I'm saying, when you get to things that are measuring how a structure measures up against a dimensional requirement,
Right,
it's a little bit more, there's
so,
already a lot of noise taken.
right, okay, so in R30, for example, there's 771 total lots. Does that include lots without a structure? Or not?
If we go back to the top, where we started out with how many lots,
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that has,
non-conforming by site size is 770. No, for R30.
so total lots, 771. And then in that analysis.
Yeah, so
that's interesting.
so they are in there.
Unless they've been taken out of the.
I mean,
total
they're not
lots.
non-conforming because they don't have a structure on them, but
Right, so
No.
that's what I'm saying, that's how
know.
it falls out is.
I know, but that means that percentage would be even higher, because if you're talking about the number of buildings.
So again, that's something else that we could also do is
Yeah.
we could say, because this is, again,
Mhm.
this isn't,
I get it.
this isn't
Yeah.
trying to tell a story.
I know.
It's just,
Yeah,
but you could say, okay, let's look at this district. Let's remove all lots with no structures because we're not making some
Right.
determination of conformity of if we're just looking on a structure basis. And then you'd really have a better picture of
right,
what does it mean for the existing property owner with a structure? How many of them are in the predicament of being up against these requirements?
Okay, so the thing that shocked me is non-conforming for lot size, because that of course drives the reason why there's all of this large non-conformity for this setback, that setback, and so on, it's the lot.
where
So-
are you?
I think it's the second one in, minimum lot size. Conformity by lot size. And 80.8% of all R5 is non-conforming for lot size, which means that they are smaller than 5,000 square feet. Did I interpret that correctly?
Let me get there.
I've got lot coverage.
Yeah, no, it's at the
That's-
beginning, I think.
No,
What-
it's number 18. It's much further along.
There it is,
Oh.
lot size.
Oh, okay, what happened is that
So
somehow
that-
mine got.
That says 59% of all lots.
It says that where,
So if you look at the
Oh, the
bottom of
bottom.
the column,
Yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
center, that says
Yeah.
non-conformity by lot
yeah,
size.
yeah,
Wait. What's this one?
59%
Oh, 59% of all.
of all.
Yeah,
correct.
but
Oh, yeah,
I'm looking at R5,
yep, 60%.
60%.
Yep. And we
61%.
did have some of that analysis when we were looking, because again, remember, that's what drove
Yeah.
4,000 square foot.
Right, and so that's the point.
and R20.
If
Geez.
61% are smaller than 5,000 square feet, but they were either created legally before there was a zoning map, which means if they were legal at the time they were, that's what non-conforming.
All of a sudden it got there, yeah.
What non-conforming means is that they were legal, at least the way I've always interpreted non-conforming. Legal when created, but no longer legal because the
Or
zone code. has
Created
changed.
before zoning, which is
Or
typically.
created
for-
before zoning.
We're just, yeah.
So this is why you have so many lots that are non-conforming in the R5, which is so important for the MBTA business. This is why you went to the 4,000, because does the 4,000 pretty much take in all of the R5 and reduce that from 60.9% to 10% or something?
I
like
don't think it's not even that dramatic. But it does bring in some, but it doesn't go all the way down.
that? Okay, so you
But
have
we could
R5.
certainly look at that
Okay.
too, because we have all the lot sizes, and we can basically say, okay, out of the 2,182, how many are 4,000 or greater?
And how many are less than?
Yeah.
The reason being is that obviously for older plat property, a 2,000, a 3,000 square foot lot was not an unusual size lot. People had smaller lots and they built smaller houses. And then all of a sudden, you don't have anything less than R5 here in Gloucester. So by virtue, any residential that is less than 5,000 or less is by definition R5, right? Because you haven't created an R4, an R2, or.
Mhm.
So what you've done is we have swept in all of these non-conforming lots that were created decades and decades ago.
Yep.
And we have to be
Well-
able to develop them.
The other crazy thing is, no wonder ZBA is busy.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I'm shocked by these numbers.
Especially if you've got a non-conforming lot in one, with one attribute, because what was the overall? 91% of lots are non-conforming in one way.
One way or
And
another.
at
Well,
least
either
one
the
way.
structure's
that?
non-conforming or the lot's not.
I know, but you still have to go-
Summarizing first
You,
one,
you
yeah,
still have to go to ZBA.
Yeah.
To do something, anything.
See, I don't know what order these, I'm glad I didn't.
can I borrow some juice?
Oh, yeah,
So
that
I
kind of
don't-
juice. I was
Oh.
like, I didn't know what kind of juice you meant, any kind of juice you want.
Oh. There we go.
By coverage, by
There we go.
non-conforming by
Back in business.
height. By non-conforming, non-conforming Front setback.
This is also something.
Oh, all metrics, I got it here.
Yeah.
It's the last, is it the last one?
No, it had, mine at least printed with, page numbers on the bottom, right?
See, mine didn't print with page number.
Oh, they're
Oh, they're right
faint.
there,
They're
12,
very faint.
11. And then 12 is. by
I
Frank.
think sharing this with the ZBA would be really interesting.
Yeah,
People
well,
with
whatever.
those people, yeah, and also
But, oh,
only
look at this.
3% of buildings are residential buildings are non-conforming by height. 3%.
That was
It's
shocking.
probably a little bit more than that because
And most of
remember
them are in
the
R5.
buildings layer is older.
Yeah.
The
Okay,
buildings layer is from 2011,
still,
but it's
Still.
not gonna be,
It's
it's
not
not gonna be a
something-
percentage point.
Right.
It's gonna be 3 point something.
So overall, non-conforming by all metrics in the R5 is 96.6.
I know.
Virtually 100% of the lots are non,
In some way.
in some way.
Again,
And not,
smallest lot district.
it picks up everything. It's the it's the.
But I mean,
vacuum
that's also, because it's the smallest lot district, it's also the one that's most prone to error.
Hmm.
For,
cleaner. Okay,
for the structure
right.
being non-conforming in
Yeah.
side yard, front yard, rear
Right.
yard, that type of thing.
Right,
But
right, because you have to measure it, but look, it's 90% for R30.
Yeah.
90% for R30, 92% for R20, and 88% for R10. I mean, that's just unbelievable.
Well, R30 has those million woodlots. I'd really like to see this again without the
Mhm.
conservation land. So is RKG, I think I asked you this on the phone, but RKG is
Done.
they
They're done.
handed this to you.
Thank you.
Okay,
They are, thank you
so
for the work.
anything that we ask,
Happy with their work?
We can work from that. point.
can you make maps, like pretty maps like this?
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Okay.
so impressed.
I know, me too.
I mean, I just love this piece.
Can you take out conservation data?
Yep.
Like, I kind of
That
want
would
to
be
go
very
into your
helpful.
office and do it myself. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, no, I think you absolutely have to, because that is not representative of.
Yeah.
Either the picture or what is
Right.
available going future.
Right.
Mhm.
Also, it would be nice to look at vacant lots. After you've taken conservation out, look at vacant lots.
Mhm.
Because vacant lots have infill capacity,
Mhm.
and those
True.
are. It's valuable to know where those are.
Especially for the OSRD,
Right.
which we should have a new
these-
name for that, by
This
the
does
way.
not include vacant lots. This is only lots with buildings on them.
No, what it does is anything that's dealing with the position of the structure.
Okay.
So it would include them in like frontage. It includes them in frontage and area,
Yeah.
but it
right.
doesn't include them in.
Setback.
Except it's included in the height. So in other words, the total lots is including lots with no buildings on
Okay.
it.
Right.
But
But is that true of other ones?
yeah, because the total lots is the same from the total lots in the front, in the first slide.
Well, but all of them at width have 771 and 2182.
That's
So
what I
that's
mean.
not-
So total
yeah.
lots includes all lots, even the ones in conservation that don't have buildings on.
But
them.
it also includes lots that aren't built on that are
Yes.
developable.
Right.
Oh, yes, totally.
Right.
But. Well,
So
that's just
something's wrong
another
with the
project
one.
for your office.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, this is very valuable.
Good starting point.
It's a
Yeah,
Great starting
excellent.
point.
Yeah,
Can you
excellent.
share the database? Like, can I play with it and not screw it up?
It's GIS based,
Oh,
It's
so
what
it's not
is?
really
I know.
I mean,
In my next life, I'm gonna get GIS training, so it's not too late. I still have 25 years.
you can do it online. There's
Really?
there's an open source GIS called, it's called QGIS.
Really?
That's your
That
next
might be a
step.
project for November. Q is in the letter,
Q is in the letter.
Wow.
GIS.
I'm impressed,
Yep.
Jane.
what?
I'm impressed that you would take GIS training.
Hire myself out, earn some money. for once. Do some of this for real money
It's not
instead of
completely
volunteer.
altruistic. So I don't know,
Thanks,
what more
Greg.
you want to do at this point, but.
Well,
um,
that's maybe a conversation for another day, because it's 5:30, but, it would certainly, if we decide to make any changes to the dimensional tables, it gives us really good data to back
Absolutely.
it up to say, and I would take it one by one once we get the cleaner set of data. But yeah, I mean, we need to change front setback in our. Yeah.
Yeah.
For starters.
Well, and it would also be interesting to look at some of the analysis that you did of decisions.
Yeah,
And kind of see how that compares
yeah,
by district, and then, what's the most common, type of thing.
right. Well, it's the most common actually is that, and then whatever it is, it's like the sheds, I forget what they call them.
Yeah.
The two in front of the primary dwelling, accessory
that's-
structure in front, yeah,
Yeah,
closer to the street than the primary dwelling.
Which would be a garage. in
Yep.
some
Yeah.
cases.
All right, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Can I
you want
turn
to
off?
stop? Yep.
Are you going to the gym on Friday?